Welcome to the For Her Collective. I'm so excited to be here tonight. I am JP,
I'm Daisha.
and we are so elated to have a guest here tonight, which is none other than my sister, my other best friend, um, my my partner in crime, and my children's second mama. She is none other than Jannah. So, Jannah, thank you so much for being here and joining the collective this evening. We're so happy to have you. Absolutely elated to jump into this conversation and to hear from you. Before we get started and jumping right in, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, what contributions you're making to this world right now?
Okay, no pressure. Yeah, so my name is Jannah. I, for clarity's sake, am the biological sister and best friend. No disrespect, Aisha. um, um, I am currently a medical student in Connecticut. Um, and that is my contribution to society. I am hoping to, I'm interested in either pediatrics, OB-GYN, and recently interested in neurology. So currently I'm going through different um, clinical rotations to kind of see which area that I would be most interested in. I am Christian. And so that is me. That is my contribution.
So can I say something really quick?
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with you being her best friend and biological best sister. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I consider myself adopted, whether you receive me or not in school, but it's not about that. But I wanted to I thought that was so interesting. I didn't know that you were looking into neurology, and so we'll have to talk more about it offline because I have recently, well, actually not recently. I've been interested in research, but my I don't feel like my gifting is like has been in that area, so I've shied away from it. But I finally stepped my toe into research, and I'm definitely interested in neurology. So I would love to hear like more about like what that looks like for
Oh,
you.
it's really cool. It's
Okay,
really cool.
can you just tell me something? Like I want to know.
I mean, if you have an interest in like how the brain functions and things like that, and like chemical balances and how chemical imbalances and things like that, and just how, or imaging and how like brain trauma or strokes or anything like that, it can affect the brain and how it affects your body, and your overall psychological health as well, because there is some psychiatry involved in it as well. I think that it is a interesting spot because it combines. I feel like in terms of medicine, neurology is unique because it does combine a lot of science and biology, and it also combines like a lot of psychiatry and counseling as well, because a lot of the conditions surrounding brain injuries and do not have cures. I mean, when you think of certain diseases like Parkinson's and things like that, or if someone has a stroke and they have significant damage, or dementia, those are not cured. That's only mostly about medication management of your symptoms, and so that requires a lot of counseling as well as understanding the science behind it. So it has this like a cool little combination between the two that I really like.
Yeah.
So
That's really cool, Jana. So yeah, we'll definitely have to talk more online. I'm or offline. I'm part of a research project with Georgetown at the Connect to Baby program. And so it's with the psychology department. So I'm like dipping my toes in. But what I really like, my secret like desire is like I want to study more about like autism. And I know like
mm.
everybody's doing research on autism, but when I ask people, like, don't nobody had no answers for me. And I'm like, now I'm gonna have to go find out myself because
Autism is very complex. I'm not gonna lie. It's
no,
very complex. That
I
makes sense.
know. Like, but
I'm
yeah,
glad that that's exciting to hear. I think, yeah, I think if you're interested in it and you're passionate about it, like do it. Go for it.
Thank you,
Yeah.
girl. Thank you. So just expect some more calls from me because I've got lots of questions. None of which we were here for tonight, but I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about it. But I love it. So JP, I'm sorry. Give it back. I'm giving it back to you. Why are we here tonight? No, you're totally good. I see that face. You're like, no, no, no. Yes.
So we've had discussions, so many discussions about the idea of, we've heard from so many voices, so from different people about relationships, and we've heard from married women. We've talked about parenting, we've talked about our relationships with the church, we've talked about our relationship with God, we've talked about a relationship in terms of sisterhood and friendship. And one of the missing pieces, I feel like, was, or you felt like, was hearing a voice from a single woman. And so there was no better person, in my opinion, than my sister to have on and jump in on this conversation. And when, let me just go back for a minute. When I talked about best friend, and this is no stab to Daisha, I wasn't talking about Daisha specifically. I was talking about because I
Oh,
had another sister on prior
Yeah.
a few weeks ago.
I knew that.
oh,
I knew that.
oh.
I knew
I didn't know that. I
I
didn't know
figured
that.
you knew that, but I'm
I
like, don't.
personally direct geared that statement towards
That's why I'm like,
Daisha.
I'm not
She's
bothered. I'm not bothered.
Daisha, like, what? No, wait, why am I in it?
Why am I this? So I'm like coming at Jana right now, like, don't throw Daisha. Don't no shots at her right now, okay?
Throwing it back,
I
Daisha.
love all of you guys. All of y'all are my sisters, so it
For
doesn't bother
sure.
me. This is just our sisterly bond. I don't care because I'm still part of the family. You guys are still taking me in. So
Yes. So yeah, so that's what we want to talk about tonight. So just wanted to have a conversation about that and talk a little bit about not only Jana's experience currently with being just driven, and as you can see from the beginning of our conversation, very involved, very knowledgeable, very bright, smart, all of the above, everything you can think of, intelligent. But also, she mentioned that she was a Christian, and just wondering what that looks like for you in 2023. I don't know if Daisha, if you had any other questions or anything specific you wanted to throw out there for Jana, but also share our experiences if we can remember, and talk a little bit about that as
I
being single
definitely have
women, and
not
also,
forgotten.
but also what we observe today in our certain specific context as well. So
So that's for you, Jana. I think those were a lot of questions. So
That was a lot of questions. And can you single it down to one?
yeah, Daisha can do that for you.
all right, okay. So one question. So what is it like from your perspective in 2023, post-apocalypse? What is it like to what is it like to be a single person? Like I've heard rumors of things. I've heard and please forgive me if this is not funny too, but I've heard like people say like the dating pool out there, it has pee in it. Like so,
That's accurate.
is that accurate? Is that accurate?
Yeah. There's doo-doo in the dating pool. Sorry. Sorry.
Somebody clean the pool, clean the pool.
Mm.
So yeah. Did that
Um,
go down for you?
I I agree with that statement immensely. I think that especially if you are looking for, not necessarily even looking, because I don't believe in myself looking, but especially if you are placing yourself in a position to be seen, shall I say, and and you're searching for a specific type of man who is a Christian and who is actually practicing Christianity as opposed to being like a self-proclaimed. And I think that dating pool is already very slim. And then you also, I feel like there's also some generational differences in the way that some men think currently. Um, and kind of, I get this air of laziness and like a lack of honestly, sorry, and just a lack of like chivalry and not a lack of effort. Um, and I think also one thing for me is just I know exactly where I'm going, and at least I have, or I'd like to think that I have an idea of where I'm going, and I know that I'm going to be in a certain place in my life, whether this plan of becoming a doctor works out or not. And so I think that I want someone who is like on my level educationally. And I think that I find that that is also a challenge as well. Um, and also I think spiritual maturity as well, I think is kind of lacking. So.
Do you think I mean, you gave a lot of reasons, right? A lot of things. And I definitely don't have the answers. I can't swim, and so I never could. So like even yeah, I can't even speak to like I don't feel like as far as like dating, I don't feel like I could ever really have spoken to that. I just feel like I just kind of stumbled into my relationship, but kind of not exactly, but um the spiritual piece specifically, do you feel like that's a impact of COVID, or just like the generation who raised?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't think it has, I never actually even factored COVID into the mix.
Okay.
Um, I always kind of thought that it is and I don't necessarily blame the generation before, but I do think that there is something there in regards to that. But I also think it's just the culture, like the culture that we're currently moving in is just like, it's very strange. It's things are becoming very, I think it's intentionally blurring lines.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like Christianity is being watered down.
Mhm.
And that is affecting people who identify as Christians' lives spiritually and what people think is what it means to be a Christian. And that a Christian can truly, a true Christian can do what someone who is a non-believer can do, or practice, I shall say,
Yeah.
and have those, or loopholes, shall I say, or certain
Mhm.
things are okay, certain things are I don't know if it's not okay, but I'm still gonna like rock with it a little bit. Like it's very like it's getting, I find that the culture that we're in is getting, and I think it's like I said, I think it's intentional. It's like muddling down and watering down Christianity, and a lot of distortions are happening. And I think also specifically, I don't, like I said, I don't even necessarily blame it on the generation. I also think it has something to do with where the church is going, especially how it is trying to appeal to young people in a way that looks more um, secular than anything, um, and very much into a what's the saying? Like prosperity type of
Mhm.
preaching, and very like it's there's no clear delineation. Like I've seen some very interesting church services and things on the internet, and I've spoken with Japera about it a lot. Some of the crazy stuff we've seen happening in church services that
Yeah.
and people are it's a it's a distortion, and people are being deceived into thinking that this is what Christianity looks like,
Mm.
that it looks like the world, and it doesn't. It should not.
Yeah.
And so I think that that is affecting, I don't think that's just affecting men who are Christians. I think it affects me too. I think it does. And so,
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah.
So for clarity, so you're saying like not just men, but like maybe not even just your generation period, but like just the church period is okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel so super removed, to be honest. Just to be honest, because like I I mean I don't know, because my focus has been like serving children and families,
Mhm.
um probably for like almost the last 10 years. Um like yeah, I've only been focused really on like yeah, making sure the next generation knows that yeah, I feel very removed. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, what's happening out there?
Yeah, I think you bring up some really good points. And my other sister and I had a similar conversation. And just to kind of go along with some of the issues just with the church in general that I think it's impacting, um, I'm going to say specifically men, although I do think it's, it's affecting all of us in one way or another. And this may be somewhat controversial, but I think there's the church caters to women. I think that there is a
Absolutely.
lack of men in leadership in our churches in general. And so we don't see them. Men don't see other men, enough men being men, and so it looks, you go to a lot of churches and you don't see, it's like, I'm trying to be careful here, but it's like every person is a woman, the everything, and even the young people, of course, women are teachers and that sort of thing, but the preacher is a woman, the person at the door is a woman, the greeters, it's all women. And I think that there are two extremes where it's like, oh, of course, we're supposed to be a part of the body, but I think that we're meant to serve. It should be men and women in certain positions, not in my context, not in all, but in certain positions. And I think um, men, I think about what I've heard my father say, and he like men likes to see men. We like to see men doing male things. That's what he's attracted to. And so that is, I think, one reason, that could be where we're not seeing where Jana talked about men who are Christians. And I think a lot of men too, they may lean towards a different faith where there are more men that they can see visually living it out and serving in that way. And I don't want to necessarily call those out, but we can see kind of where Black men are moving towards. And so I don't know. I don't know if that could be controversial. And I understand that everyone may not agree, but I do think that has an impact on the quality of man, but also the quantity of men that we see in the faith in being a part of the Christian church.
I think you bring up a good point because I think one thing I feel like I've realized, especially when it comes to young Black men, is like the importance of having community. And just having someone to like take them under their wing. And I don't
Mhm.
see that in a lot of churches
Yeah.
where there is like really some like a male, a father, a husband, a leader in the church who really takes under a young person or a young man who's like a new Christian or whatever however he came to be there and really
Mhm.
kind of guide him and mentor him. I feel like I don't see a lot of that. And I feel like that also plays into their level of um, consistency and their desire to want to even return to church. If
Yeah.
like there's no community. And I think that you're right in terms of, I mean, I have several friends in other religions, and there is a huge like brotherly like connection and community, and they do things together in their own communities. They have meetings in their own communities. Um, Discussing just their faith, what they can
Mhm.
do to build up themselves and their families, and really a lot of guidance that I feel like the church does not offer a lot of young men.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, I've been a part of the church I'm part of now, and even my last church when we were in the Bay Area. Really, there was a push, especially now. I mean, our church in the Bay was smaller, but here our church is 7,000 people. But it just makes a difference. And I know some people would feel like this is too much, but every person you see, from the greeter to the person speaking to the person preaching, even in all the children's classes, there is a man there present with the woman teaching her. It's usually her husband. And it makes such a difference. Like, I saw it trying to be carried out in at our last church. And we did what we could based on the size, and it was just a difference. And now being and seeing it on this level, it makes such a difference in the diversity in the church between male and female, but also the level of, I don't want to say like protection, but that's the best word that's coming to me right now. Protection, and then like you seeing, I even see my husband like being vulnerable in a way with other men, doing life with other men, talking about like fatherhood, being a husband, how to work, the struggles. And it's all in a Christian, in a biblical context, where they're praying together, where they're getting together and, ministering together in the church and outside the church and coming to each other's home. We had some men come over here the other day. They dropped off a care package just because, like, to my family. It was men, it wasn't women, it was men who did that. And that's just an example of, here it's like I see it done well, but this is an anomaly. It's not real. This is not real
Oh,
life.
so you're just in the greatest church of all time, huh?
I really am. I am. But also I know this is not real, just in the sense of like, in my real context, like after we finish here, it looks different. And it feels different. And I mean, even my sister, when she came, I didn't bring that up to her. She was like, it's men everywhere. Like it's just it's and then it made us talk, and it made us come into conversation like, why and what about our other churches? And I hope I'm not coming off like, oh, this is the best, everybody needs to, but I'm just trying to point out that there is a difference. There is a difference. And I think even the quality of men that I've even the young men that we've met over the past few years, even being at our other church, it's just different when you have men in the church doing what they're supposed to do, and you have other men that they can look to and that they can be accountable to, having accountability. And so I just add that up.
I'm just like, okay, so what's the answer? Like, what's the solution? Like, because I really hadn't thought about it. So you got like, because I'm busy, like, like living life. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And so like I feel like this is the first time like I'm really like, oh, like, oh, there's a problem. And so I'm just like, okay, well, how do we, because when I'm listening to you guys, like I'm hearing, I'm wondering if it's two things, right? And maybe it's not, because it's the church, and then I'm wondering specifically, um, is it like not a space in church for Black men? Um, or if it's just men, period. And I don't know the answer, so I guess I'm just wondering, like, what do you guys think? And like, because when I think of when I was initially thinking like, oh, Black men, because I see Black men reaching out to the younger generation. It's not in the churches though. It's like it's in the
Mhm,
communities, and it's
mhm.
making sure that they know they're kings, or making sure they have opportunities. So like to learn like coding and programming and computer science and things like that. I do see like mentorship happening in the Black community for the younger generations. I don't see it in the church, and I hadn't really thought about that. I do know, the church caters to women, and actually, I feel like years ago I used to like try to scream this, and nobody was listening. So I'm just like, okay, well, nobody cares, so whatever. And I'm like, well, now look at us now. So, um, um, but I guess like, okay, so how do we, um, you know, JP, you have it sounds like this this
I don't have,
experience.
I don't have the solution, but so I don't. I do think, and I do think that the problem is not specifically Black men. I think all well, in this context, I think it starts from the church, meaning I feel like the church needs to do better in teaching and training men, period. And if we are teaching and training men, then it doesn't matter. I mean, I think Black men will fall into that. And I think, this is so layered, because I feel like if men are teaching men and training them to be men, then all those things, it's almost like scripture, all these other things will be added unto you. Like if you teach them to be responsible, if you teach them to be good stewards of whatever it is that God has given them, whether it be just a job, whether it be just a wife, a family, children, money, whatever it is. But really, I think it's about starting with the church and salvation and what it means to be a man. And then after that, everything else can come. And that's where I would say it would start from. And yeah, that's it. Those are my thoughts.
So I'm gonna go back, and because I do think it is, I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree to
So
a
that means you
point.
agree.
Well, yeah, it is. Right. Like I agree what you're saying, and but I think it's happening in some spaces and not in others. And I think the unfortunate thing is that the church is very divided. And so and one big way is in race, right? And so you serve at a very diverse church. And so like I hear you saying it's what do you call it? A carnival or a
What?
I forgot what you get. Not a carnival. That's not the word. Or what? Like it's a. It's
What?
not
What?
real. Like what do you say? Like it's
Oh, this like
Candyland,
it's like
Disneyland or something.
it's
Like
yeah, it's like
yeah,
Christian
yeah.
Disneyland. It is.
And so like and you say it's not real, but it's I mean it's real in some places, right? Like we I feel like we're at a church now. It's also a very diverse church. It's also a large church, and I feel like I feel like I do see this in larger churches. Even but there's an African American church about maybe about 45 minutes away from us that I feel like I can't say for sure because I don't go there, but like I at least see the activity where they are reaching out to men, and I do see a lot of men in leadership and in spaces. And so I don't know. I guess I'm just wondering. I don't again I don't have the answers, but I guess I'm just wondering because um we're so divided. Like maybe it's happening in some spaces in aspects in church, but maybe the predominantly like Black churches, I'm wondering, not all, but and let me back up a little bit too. Jannah, when you had mentioned like this like the state of maybe the church. And when you said it, it made me think of I'm not pulling out my Bible tonight. I'm not gonna do it. But it made me think of the prophet Elijah. JP, y'all, either one of y'all correct me if I'm saying it wrong, but I believe it's the prophet Elijah, where he was fleeing for his life, and he told God, he was like, "There's nobody left but me," and God calmly stated, "I actually have like 7,000 prophets left."
Mm.
Or something to that effect. Now they might be, you're in a cave right now, so you don't know, you don't see. And that's what came up for me when you said that. And so I guess I'm just gonna put it out there. Like I I think it's a both and, right? Like there is this legitimate crisis in the body of Christ, where there is a lack of um, you know there's this disconnect with church and men in particular, maybe even Black people, I dare say, you know, or whoever. And there is, and I think there is, and I can't confirm it, but I believe that there's always a remnant, right? Shout out to J Christ, but I do think there is a remnant, right? Because we're part of it. I'd like to think. I hope. And so this 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 these this people who still believe like God's word is true and God is still who he says he is, and we're still trying to walk in his ways and raise, godly children, and the men who will lift up holy hands and take a stand for Jesus, like they still exist. And so like there's a crisis and they're not all gone. And can I say for sure there are any in your generation? I don't know. I hope so. Maybe, I think, but I don't know what they
Sure
are.
they are, but there's far and few, child.
Maybe not in Connecticut. Maybe come down and visit me one weekend, girl.
Sheesh.
But yeah, so I don't know how you guys feel about that, or if you feel like, girl, you don't know what you're talking about. You little kids.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I agree with you. Jonna, did you have anything you want to add to that or thoughts about it?
I'm all for it. Like I'm with you. What I'm just it's it's a low number. It's a low population.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that is it.
yeah.
And I know that I've had conversations with Japir about this before about like how important is race in the church. And I think that we kind of separate a little bit because I think it's very super important. And I lean into the idea of like I don't necessarily I'm not sure I'm 100% for this idea that there is like even that all men in the church are created equal. Like I don't really get that sense in terms of Black men. I think that even in a diverse church, I feel like they tend to fall a little bit more by the white wayside a little bit more. And I think that is related to race and I don't know, maybe fear or connection or not feeling like adequate or not feeling like you'd be able to connect to this person. I'm not sure. I can't say. But I do feel like just from people that I've met and what I've seen is just like I've seen a lot of other races connect very well in the church for as men, and that it seems to be a little bit more of a challenge for young Black men to do that, and to have that mentorship and connection with someone older than them.
Yeah. And I think I think that when it comes to with those things, my thoughts are, um, I see that, I understand that standpoint, and I think that it all comes from biblical teaching and training and what is just what the men are exposed to. Um, in terms of like I know the idea of the Black church a lot of times from where we come from and our type of churches is like, well, that's all that was there were women, and so the church, they use what they have and to get to carry on the work, and so but I think after just being exposed to some different things over the past years and things like that, I think I've seen even smaller churches, Black churches, because before we were here, we were in a Black church, smaller, but even in that context, we saw the pastor spend time even with us, with Shar and with other men, and was like teaching and training scripture and teaching them what the Bible said, just about who God is, understanding who He is, and then from there, taking it and so you can better understand yourself, and then from there you can teach your family or teach your community, whatever setting you're in. And I think that if it was, if we saw that level of intention, it would carry on to Black men. But that's why I said it's layered, because there's issues, because the church still, a lot of churches, Black churches or smaller churches, sometimes have to do what they have to do. They have to get, they want to get the choir going, they got to get this going, this program going and that program going, and then sometimes we forget to keep the main thing. And so yeah, I think it's very layered. It's not one thing or another. There's a historical thing that that's not being mentioned right now in the conversation. It's all sorts of stuff to where it's like, these things can be addressed and we have to address that, and, to even get to where we are now. So I think it's a lot. I think it's a lot. So.
So what are you, I guess, Jonna, so like, what are you, I'm kind of shifting a little bit. So like, how do you, because I mean, you know, I don't want to assume like, you desire to be married one day, like, because that's like, I mean, if you do, that's great. And if you don't, that's great, right? Like, um, and I guess how do you navigate like in this that type of environment? Um, like, yeah, how do you navigate that? Like, um, yeah, having to live in, because it from what it to me, it sounds like discouraging, right? Like it sounds discouraging, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's not all bad. Maybe it's not all bad. But in a state of like, through just a Christian lens, right? It sounds like very bad, and you have to like live every day in just in the world, right? And so like, how do you navigate that? Like, do you just like get up out the pool that has doo-doo in it, or
I think it's hard, and I don't even have a direct answer to that. I think that on one end you have this small dating pool of people that you are searching for, and then you have the much larger dating pool of people that you don't want any, but they're there, you know. And I think that that's a real thing for, I feel like a lot of single people is just like, oh, I want a Christian partner, I want a Christian woman, I want a Christian man, but where are they? And these are the type of people that are available to me, and I want a family or whatever that is. And so I feel like that happens a lot. Um, but I think it's hard because I think that as someone who is getting older, I think that you're getting it from all sorts of things. Like, I think that not only is the dating pool kind of small, I think there's also some pressure, like from your family to a degree. Like, I think like a couple weeks ago, my dad was just like, "You need to be married," and I was like, "Oh." It just went from 0 to 100 like super quick, and I was just like, "Oh, okay, great." It's like, I don't want to be bitter and I was like, "Oh, how do we get here? How do we get here?" And so I hear that, like I hear that, and I've heard that even in my early 20s, when I'm very choosy, and so I was heard by family members, "Oh, do you like girls? I've never seen it." Like, just very hints of things like that. And so I feel like you're getting that, and then you're also getting that, oh, once you hit a certain age, and if you're a Black woman, and if you don't have any kids, which I do not have, and you reach a certain age and you're not married, you don't have a kid, you're not, then there's something wrong with you. And it's like you automatically kind of get a stamp that like you're not a good candidate because you hit a certain age, I guess. And I think that it's also hard because I'm in school and that has always been my focus. And so that also limits things a lot because there's only a certain amount of time that I'm willing to devote to that. Because I think that I can be much more impactful in my community as a physician than I could be as a wife. That's just my personal, for me. And
Yeah.
so I feel like I can affect more change. So that's where my primary focus is at. And so that also kind of, like, I have to choose, like, which one am I gonna, to a degree, which one am I devoting, what I'm gonna devote most of my time to? Like, that's gonna, and whatever that is, that's what I'm gonna get the most return on. So I feel like it's coming from multiple different parts, and it's very hard, and I haven't figured it out. Um, I'm just kind of rolling with the punches when I get the comments and when I get the things, then it's just like, I'll either call Japera or I'll call my other sister and tell her like, oh, someone said this, or someone said that, and like sometimes I need to be reminded that like, just because you're in this society, but you don't have to subscribe to like anything that's in the society, like you don't have to, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. You're doing what you can, and like, and it is okay. It is okay if you are not married. It is okay if you don't have children. I feel like we also have a church in the church. It's if you're not married, and if you're, it's just like, what are you doing? I
Mhm.
don't think in the church, I don't think singles are besides like and no, like not I don't want to say workhorse, but that was the first thought that came to my mind.
Me too.
um sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're not, you're a workhorse, but then there's also just like, you're not married, you're not producing any children. You're kind of just like, I don't think there's a huge like encouraging spot for singles in the church, honestly. You kind of feel, it kind of often feels like there's something wrong with you to a degree, and that a lot of the conversations are geared towards married couples and things. And so it's hard.
Mhm.
That was a lot. Sorry.
No, that was, I
That's
mean,
good.
yeah, I mean, that was truth. It resonated with me. And yeah, no, I mean, that's your experience. And I just want to say too, if I was, officially a part of the family, I would never say any of those things to you. So I just want to just put that out there, Jannah. I would never. So keep that in mind. But yeah, like, yeah, it's unfortunate, like society, there is a stigma on single people, right? And it's this double-edged sword, right? Like, danged if you do, danged if you don't, because it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah, if you're in a relationship too young, that's you're too young, and you have your whole life, and but there's this small window. If you cross over that, like, what are you doing? Why, and unfortunately that culture bleeds into the church.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's really sad, that, yeah, like the church does kind of mirror, um, our culture and our society on how we treat, um, people who are not married, who don't have children. And like, I'm even a little like, I'm even like with us, I want to be careful too, because it's like, that don't have to be the goal, right? Like, there's more to singleness than just finding the one and having kids, right? Like, I love that you talk about like how you can impact your community, and like what your hopes and your dreams are. Like, your purpose is bigger than just, or more than, because I want to be careful with, I don't want people to take me literally with my words, but like, you have purpose outside of, like being someone's wife or someone's mom, that, like, you sense that's what God is calling you to. And I think that's great. Like, that, um you recognize, like, that doesn't, like, and your season may change, that God may call you to that at some point, and that will
And
be.
I don't want to confuse it. Like I do want to be married. I do want sometimes I alternate, but I do want children. In order for me to have children, I like, because I don't really believe in doing anything for free. I need to be. I'm not pushing out anybody's for free. Everything costs. And so that's just kind of how I see it. And so I don't think like I feel that way too, but I think that like I've realized that just because you want something and you really want it, and it's good. Like it's good to want. I think it's good. Like I think it's good to want to be married. I think it's good to want a family. But that doesn't mean that is that is yours to have. And I think that also I didn't always think that way. Like I a lot of times, and sometimes it still comes up, but that wasn't just until recently, I feel like. But for a large part of my life, I thought that like being married and all those things was like that is the goal. That is what is considered life. That is, and I still to a degree kind of feel that way. Like I feel like I've been conditioned to feel that way to a degree. Like, I mean, everything I see on TV from the time I was a little girl, from Disney Channel and Nickelodeon and Disney movies, was all about, and Barbies, everything, all that stuff was all about finding the perfect person and then living happily ever after.
Yeah.
Like, so that is very much still in my mind, and I still feel that way to a degree. So I feel like society, as a female, like society has conditioned me to think that way, and I do.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
So do you unlearn that, or do you just hold it and how do you-
I don't think that I've unlearned it. Like I don't know how to unlearn it. I think it's just there, and it's just constantly something that I just have to battle and just tell myself like this is okay because the word says that it's okay. Um and that I'm just as special and unique if I'm not.
Yeah.
But it's just a matter of like which voice is the loudest. And if I'm honest, sometimes society's voice is the loudest. You know, a lot of times, sometimes society's voice is the loudest with that. Like, you're not married, you're not this, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
also, like I said, being conditioned by society, do I feel like the church conditioned me to be okay and comfortable in singleness? No, I don't. I don't feel like I had that experience growing up that it was okay. Um, so
I even think the idea of when we people talk about ministries and they call it single ministries, and it's single is a lot of when we think about that, it's in relationship of having a partner or a person. And so I even think the naming of it is like, it can be kind of like,
Problematic?
what
yeah,
should
I
it be
mean, but
called? What is the term?
because
What is
I think, well, it could just be an age group or life stage, a specific life stage, because a lot of times when people hear singles, you have these people who are hungry, who's like, oh, I'm going to come here and meet people, and I'm going to meet my spouse, and blah 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 blah. And I don't feel like that should be the point of them.
mm,
But ideally, because you're right, everyone is not will not be have a partner, or I don't even like using that word. I don't even know why I said that. Have will not be will not be married, and will not be married, and so um, and I think I agree with you, John. I think they are good desires. I think there is a reason why society puts that on people, but I also think society is starting to veer away from marriage too. I feel like people are promoting singleness and promoting being independent and going after your life. So I think you have to balance it, and I think we have to go back to what Scripture says. And I think when you um, using what's in front of you. And I think you said this, and I think you live this out very well. It's like I'm using what's in front of me, what God has blessed me with what's in front of me, and I'm gonna carry that out until whatever He says is next. And so if that means I'm going to be studying really hard, or I'm going to whatever it is, I'm going to give it my all during this time until, like Daisha said, that season changes. And once that changes, then wherever I'm walking into, that will be my next focus.
the idea of it sucks. I'm not gonna lie. Like the idea of the possibility that like, oh, this could, or this might not. Like that, the idea of like something that, which I feel like a lot of Christian women, I feel like identify with who are single and wanting to be married is just like, wow, will this ever happen for me? Like, is there something, all these things. And I think that like it's hard to like I feel like you have to wrestle with that a little bit. And with that possibility.
Yeah.
And I still do like, cause you just don't know. You just don't know. But yeah, I feel like it's kind of like a day by day type of thing, and that you just, I just feel like you just got do what you can, and try not to. I feel like also trying to surround yourself with people with support, because I feel like if you don't feel like you have support, and if you're constantly getting all these signals and messages from people about not being married, then that leads to like desperation. And desperation means that you go looking on the other side, the grass with the weeds in it. You feel what I'm saying? You know, like in an effort to be with someone or to have that ideal life that you want for yourself, and you end up sometimes you get something that you probably necessarily didn't need to have in that moment. You know, we try to rush God's timing a lot. So
Let me say something, if it's okay. So
uh-oh, uh-oh.
no, and I'm saying this because like marriage and motherhood is it's wonderful, right? It's beautiful. And it also has its challenges. Like there's going to be challenges in every season, right? So whether it's a season of singleness, there's challenges that come with that. And then um in marriage and in motherhood, there's challenges that come with that too. And so like, because I guess I don't want to paint this picture of like um the weeds being staying single or getting with the wrong person. Even with the right person, there's gonna be weeds, right? Like,
Sure, sure.
you know, and on the flip side, right, like there's beauty in motherhood and as a wife, and there's beauty in singleness too. And I'm curious, JP, like what your experience as a single person like was. I don't know, for me,
That's hilarious. Japan's single months.
whoa,
That is
did it
hilarious.
exist? Was she single? Was she okay? Okay. Do we need to
Sorry.
pause the recording?
Wow. It just came out of left field. That was just wow. What time is it? Yeah.
Wow.
Well, let me talk about my singleness really quick then, and we'll recover from whatever that was. Um, I don't know. I mean, I didn't get married till how old was I when I got married? 31.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I enjoyed my singleness. Like I had fun, and I wasn't like wilding or nothing like that. Like I wasn't crazy, and like I don't know. I had fun. Like I had fun, but and I will say too, it sounds like the state of the church is different too. Like I was living life with other single people who were having fun, right? And it wasn't like no hookups and no like trying to like, oh, like we were all single in different stages. We weren't called a singles ministry, we were young adult ministry. But I just had like I had a life, I traveled, like there are things that I remembered I got to do as a single person that I still like kind of like miss that I can't do now. Like, being able to go on a tour for 6 months around the country. And I never did get on that cruise ship, but like I could have back then, whereas now, like I still think about that. I'm like, I should have got on that cruise ship. But like there was just there are challenges that come with singleness for sure. Just like everything else. And I do think there's beauty in it. But I also think it's hard to see the beauty in it when um everything, whether it's family, the church, society, everybody's saying you need to get out of the season and be in another season.
Yeah.
And when that's constantly like in your ear, you can't enjoy the season that you're in. Like, fall is wonderful. It's beautiful. There's pumpkin spice, there's warm, the weather is beautiful, and you got to clean up the leaves, like I right now, like we're still like, I don't want to pay somebody to pick up these leaves because it's a lot of them. But I got to figure it out. But that's a side note. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. But like, there's beauty in every single season, and there's challenges, and so I guess I don't want people, the listeners, and you, Jonna, like I don't even want you to hear like it's gonna suck until you get to this next season. Like, because
Mhm.
no, like there's wonderfulness in the season that you're in right now. Like you're literally gonna change the world, sis. Like you are doing amazing. You said no, no, you will. You will. You will. You are going to change the world. And there's that's amazing. That's amazing. And so
And
what
I don't mean that it, I don't mean to cut you off. I don't mean that it sucks to be in this season. I mean that it can suck to think about the idea that you might not be something that you want. So that you, or you might not ever get to, it might not happen for you. That's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
And I think that in terms of the beauty of singleness, like I just feel like I never had a, like even those three, like I can appreciate it when you say it, but even like that sentence that there's beauty in singleness is like almost like foreign, foreign to
Mhm.
me
Yeah,
to a
yeah,
degree. Like
yeah.
I just in terms of just my entire life experience of like that has not really been a conversation that singleness is beautiful. And like I think that even when you hear married people speaking about, oh, you know, marriage is not easy, you know, and I've seen it. It's not. It's not easy, and it's not always pretty, and kids are a lot, and they get on your nerves, and they are dirty. And you know, I see all that, but I think as you know, it's just like someone who's like outside looking in, you know, it's just like from the outside and the way it's been painted, and there's a lot of idealization of marriage as well, is that it looks like, wow, once that happens, everything, the stars will align. There's going to be pixie dust, you know, sprinkling. You know what I mean? It like that's what it appears like to the
Mhm.
single person, even when you get like mentorship or saying like, you know, marriage is not a walk in the park. And he was like, yeah, but I hear what you're saying, but
I see you walking with somebody in the park.
exact no, seriously, you
Yeah.
know, at least you have somebody to do it with,
Right.
you know, like kind of like, you know, so
Mm-mm.
oh,
Down the alley or something.
so
Yeah.
perspective, you
Yeah,
know.
perspective. And I agree with you, Daisha, too, 100%. I think that there is beauty in singleness. I mean, even Paul talks about the singleness, you know. And when I think about my single days, Daisha, mine was very similar to yours. It was fantastic.
Oh yeah, she
And
had a ball.
I had a blast. It was great. It was great. It was so I had such a great single life. And I think, when I think about that time of my life, my focus, ideally, I wanted to be married. In my mind, I knew I would be married. I just kind of knew it, but that wasn't the focus of my conversations. I knew my friends really wanted to be married. Like Daisha, I think I felt like, we would talk about it, and I feel like some of y'all was like really, really wanting to be married, and that was okay. And I wanted to be married too.
Listen, okay, but I want to set the record straight. It wasn't that I really wanted to be married. I just knew I was going to be married. And I knew
Right.
by the time you and me became friends, I knew my season was coming because the Lord had put that in my spirit. But had
And
you
that's
known
okay.
me
It
before
don't
then,
matter.
How do you know something like that? Like, how do you know, like, oh, I'm going to be married? How can you say that?
In my mind, I felt like I'm like, I know I'm gonna be married. I just don't know when. I don't know who. I don't know. I just felt that.
yeah.
I don't
I
know.
mean, but people feel that all the time, but they're not,
Well, maybe it was
you
just
know
the
what
love
I
of the
mean? Like,
time.
I know some incredible women who are like, feel like they're going to be married, feel like God told them that they were going to be married. And I mean, and not to say that it hasn't happened, it can still happen, but I'm just
Right.
saying that it hasn't hit yet.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I really want to put this out in the world, but here we go anyway. Like God shared with me, Landon was my husband in what year was that? 2005? I think
I was going to say 5. I was like, I
yeah,
remember you
2000,
always saying
yeah,
5.
2005, because it's almost 20 years ago. And wait, girl, we didn't get married till 9 years later. And we didn't start dating till 8 years before that. So it's like And honestly, like, that's a long
And y'all had some time where you didn't even talk to him, see him,
yes,
nothing.
because I was
Years.
like, did you not hear the word of the Lord? Like, anybody got time for this? I was very adamant. I was like, look, the Lord will raise up somebody else. I ain't got time to be waiting on you. Like, the man ain't stopping God's word. He'll raise up somebody who looked like you. Like, that was me in my flesh. But
I actually thought I was going to get married in my like later, very much later. I didn't think I was going to be young and married. In my mind, I thought I was going to be older than I was married. And when I say older, I mean like I was thinking I'd be married like in my 30s, late 30s actually.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so I was prepared to live like that.
yeah.
So, but that's just what was in my mind.
But to actually answer your question, Jonna, like for me, I think it really depends on like, because yeah, there's women, or and not just women, there's people in general who just go around just saying, "Thus saith the Lord," and and all just all
Mhm.
kinds of out there, and it's making the Lord and everybody who believes in Him look bad. And I'm not talking about that. What I mean is like, um if you are a child of God, God will speak to you in a way that you understand. And I believe that. I believe, whether it's, a good, really good way is reading his word, right? And, when Jesus was born, he showed the astronomers a star in the sky and was like, the Messiah's here. Like they understood the stars, right? When Jonah was being disobedient on that ship, those fishermen who didn't know the Lord, they were casting lots, like, and they were like, dude, it's you. You got to get up off this ship. Like, so I truly believe God will speak to you in a way that you understand. And so and why do I say that? Like, I feel like I have a relationship with God where there are times he speaks to me, and then there are times that he just drops knowledge in my spirit. Like I never told JP this. I knew Ashar was her husband, before you did. You like I remember you were struggling, and I was just like, listen to the Holy Spirit, listen to the Holy Spirit. And it's just like there is this knowledge, this understanding. And so like where in your life when if you knew like, hey, I'm supposed to be in Connecticut or I'm supposed to be pursuing this, like God has let you know that. And even if you are not always recognizing like this is God, like God is guiding you, right? Step by step. And so what I would say to you in regards to, whatever is to come, God is going to make it clear what the next step is and what season you're in. Like when, even though God gave me a word in 2005 about Landon, and I definitely had given up on Landon like in 2000 by 2006. I was like, oh, you don't know? Okay, bye. But I remember specifically in 2012, God had just put in my spirit that my season was changing and I'm just getting ready for marriage. And so it was just a knowing in my spirit. And so I say all that to you that God will make sure that you are on track. Like when your season is to make this big discovery, and change your community, like you will be right on target. He will, whether he puts that knowledge, however it is that God communicates to you, he will continue to do that. Same with a spouse, and if and when your season changes, um, you'll know. However, he's let you know in the past, like this is the next step. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
one more ounce of hope, and I would just say that the
Out of hope. I'm not hopeless.
no, not for you. No. I don't think you're hopeless at all. Believe me, I don't think that at all. But I'm just saying, just hope for the just for people in this stage, and that is that remembering to delight yourself in the Lord, and also just give me this day my daily bread. That's also for me. It's for all of us, but it's like whatever you have for me today, Lord, just give it to me. And that could be whatever that is, and just being open to that. And that's it. You know, that is
Yeah.
all.
And I just want to add, enjoying I'm so sorry. I have to say this because even when you said earlier that you had never heard like that perspective of like there's singleness is beautiful and singleness is a gift. Like I imagine other people out there haven't heard
Mm-hmm.
that message either. I'm not saying it to like just say it, like I mean it. Like um enjoying the season that you're in, because seasons do change. They inevitably change. Your season will change. And so if you're waiting for the summer, like it's gonna go really, really slow if you're in the winter, right? Like if you're like, oh, I really want to be in my bathing suit, like enjoy this season because the next season will come and it will come before you know it. And so enjoy this moment and all that you have to do, because when this season is over and you're in the next season, you go, dang, I wish I had done this. Like me sitting here wishing I got up on that ship, like
Right.
and so you want to have the least amount of regrets as possible and feel like you have lived a full season of singleness, of motherhood, of a biologist, of explore whatever it is, because seasons change.
Oh
Enjoy
yeah.
this one. Enjoy this one as much as possible.
Yeah.
I do my best. And I think that there's a lot of and I mentioned this to Japeri yesterday, I think yesterday. It's like I have the best time being an aunt. I love being an aunt. I like it is like the best thing. And I was talking to my niece about it, and because she's like, oh, I can't wait to be an aunt. And she's like 9. It's like, okay. But it's just such an like it is so great to just experience them and have this level of relationship with them. And then and when I go home, and getting to see them and like spend time with them and then send them on their way, you know. I love that. I love that. And I don't take that for granted. Like that. It's like, okay, well, I'd love to stay and chat, like
Yeah, and they
I'm
all
always
say that too.
I'm always wrapping it up because there's a lot of those. There's a lot of them. I have a lot of nieces and nephews, but I like those are like the things that like feed me, like in that like I enjoy so much, like because I know that I already don't have a lot of time anyway, and so just being able to like connect with my nieces and nephews is just like top tier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Top tier.
And you do it really well. I mean, they call her TT. So they call TT to ask, can they watch certain shows? Is it appropriate? Appropriate.
I
And
actually
they
had a project for the I actually presented it actually as part of a school assignment. Like my niece, she left me a message saying, "TT, can I watch Spy Kids?" And like some of my classmates got to see it, and we kind of like discussed it. It was like some form of like addressing like mental health and things like that. And so it was just like, yeah, those are the things that like feed me. And like even though I'm here in Connecticut and I'm by myself, my family's in Cali, but I've made some solid connections and from friends, and I'm dibbling, dabbling in the dating pool, seeing how it goes, checking it out here. So it's cool when it's cool, and of course, you have the days where it's like, this is overrated, and then sometimes like, okay, I can get down to this. So
yes. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation.
Who
It
knew? Who knew?
girl, I didn't
is
I was I didn't know we were going to be talking about dating or men or
Oh,
anything
oh, I thought this is
at
what we are
all.
going to be talking about.
well,
But that's okay. That's okay because I think it was good. It's been a great time, Jonna. We want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know this is sleeping time for you. This is level 4 sleep time for you. Um, you too, actually, Daisha. But
I gotta go
thank
finish
you
making
for
notes.
joining us. I think this was a very great conversation, and I hope that the people who are listening, especially the singles, but also everyone, because I feel like there was something for everyone here this evening. And I hope that you can take something from it and apply it to your life, apply it to your everyday walk. Yeah, and that's it. Any final thoughts?
I have one final question, if that's okay.
Oh.
Yeah. Jannah, if there is like one thing you want people in general, whether it's the church, the society, just one thing to know, one thing to take away, just about from our conversation, how they interact or engage or embrace or alienate uh, singles. Like, what is one thing that you want people to know? You know,
I think if anything I could say, maybe, and it's probably like super cliche, is like just trust God. Like it's just like, you know, you don't know where you're gonna go and you don't necessarily know where you're gonna end up. We like to think that we have some level of control. Even I like to think so too. And it's just to trust God. And I think that also it's important to continue to seek God for yourself. I think especially in this culture of how everybody's trying to tell you how things are supposed to be, and then church is all just changing a lot. It's just I think that you have to know God for yourself, and the only way you can do that is reading His Word, and being able to and asking God for wisdom so that you can align yourself and being open, have an open heart to be align yourself with His Word, and even asking for God to connect you with people who are able to support you and mentor you. But I think ultimately it's just to trust God and to allow Him to lead you wherever it takes you. It's going to be okay.
yeah, there it is. There it is. Thank you so much, Jannah. We appreciate you.
West side
West
till I die.
Side on the East Coast. All right.
Thank you for having me.
All right. You take care.